Okay, so another dumb argument that gets bandied around concerns whether a person deserves what happens to them. We can see that in the Rayshard Brooks case, where Rayshard grabbed a hold of a policeman's taser after beating up the police officer and fired it at the police officer. And the police officer fires back and kills him. And the question becomes, well, whatever crimes that he made, does he deserve to die for it? Hello out there. I am trying to get through.
With his powerful brainwaves cradled in the warmth of reasoning, it's time for Johnnie Walker Dread to straighten you out on a thing or two. Emanating all the way from exciting Las Vegas, Oklahoma, it's the Johnnie Walker Dread Show.
So, here's the situation. Let's suppose that you get pulled over and you have a taillight out. We saw that with Philando Castile, right? He gets pulled over and he has a taillight out and he ends up getting shot. And of course, the first thing that comes out is Philando Castile shot for having a broken taillight. Obviously, he wasn't shot for having a broken taillight. He was shot because the police officer told him not to reach into his coat, and he continued doing so. Now, I'm not going to go on and say that the police officer did no wrong in that case, because I think that the police officer actually probably overreacted and is a little bit to blame for what happened. I think that the police officer could have avoided it. Now, is he justified in the eyes of the law? Probably. However, morally justified, that's a little bit tougher one. And I should probably do a video on that myself. But here's the thing. A lot of people say, okay, so he was reaching into his jacket. Does a person deserve to die because they were reaching into their jacket? And they don't quite understand the whole concept of tragedy. In a tragedy, a person dies, but there may not be anybody at fault. And that happens all the time. Now you think, not necessarily even at fault, but maybe nobody deserved it. Let me give an example. Now this is an analogy. You cannot justify an argument with an analogy, but you can clarify it. So I'm going to clarify my argument here. Suppose that you're driving along and you are texting while driving. And because you're texting while driving, you run through a red light and you end up getting killed. Now, let me ask you a question. Does a person deserve to die because they are texting while driving? Is that a proper sentence, an execution for somebody just because they were texting while driving? Texting while driving is a violation of the Motor Vehicular Code. You're probably looking at about a $200 fine, $500 fine, something like that. Certainly not a death sentence. So does a person really deserve to die because they're texting while driving? And the answer is no. But that's the whole essence of tragedy. A person loses their life. There's nothing to say that they deserve it. And the other person hitting them isn't necessarily to blame either. You can have a tragic event with no one to blame. The same thing works with self-defense as well. For example, it is quite possible for person A to shoot person B because he feels threatened by person B and be exonerated. Sounds like Kyle. However, it's quite possible for person B to also not be doing anything wrong by attacking person A. Now you think, well, that's impossible. No, it's not. Consider this scenario. Somebody robs a bank and the alarms are going off. Okay, so the alarms are going off and a person arrives on the scene and he's got a gun, a handgun. He's a concealed carry person, do-gooder. He's a community man, never been in trouble, and he wants to help. And he sees somebody that he thinks is robbing the bank. So he chases him. And this person sees the guy with the gun and starts to run. And he happens to have a gun. And he turns around and says, I have to do something. This person's going to kill me. And so he turns around and he shoots them. Who's to blame? Person A, the guy who was running from the other one, he can claim self-defense. As long as he had a reason to believe that his life was in danger. Person B isn't to blame because he legitimately thought that person A had robbed a bank. And so what you can have are two people who are in the right, even though even though somebody died. It can happen. And so not every tragedy has somebody to blame for it. That's what makes them so tragic. Like my video and subscribe to my channel.